I like this, man. Straight down the neck type of angle. Oh, I like that a lot. Wow, okay. Tiny little adjustments are huge. Just did a little bit, little tiny bit to that high E strings nut slot, and there you go. Let's talk about this. So yeah, let's do a whole video. That's just gonna be the intro now. All right. So the nut slots in a nylon string guitar, you want it to be completely straight. These slots, right? This is a nut. These slots, there's 6 of them, one for each string. Those slots, you want to be completely in line with the string. Like where the string is just going to go down the fretboard, you want those slots to be as straight as you can. You don't want them to be coming on an angle. And sometimes, especially working on them yourself, it's out of personal experience, you can get them kind of angled. And what happens then, like that high E, for example, it was a little bit angled like this rather than straight down the neck. So then when you're fretting that high E, it kind of pushes toward the direction that the slot's going. And you don't want that, because then it's not pushing it, straight down when you're fretting it against the fretboard. So what can actually happen is you can get them on quite an angle. And then another thing you want with nut slots is you want them to be as evenly spaced as you can. If you can get each of the slots just exactly, well, give or take, but pretty much the same exact spacing, then you have the same amount of space between the frets when you put your fingers there, and then it just feels the same across the strings. And when you have your nut slots from like one side of the nut to the other, you want it to be flat, even in there. As far as, you don't want it to be like a rounding in there, you want it to be just like a clean slot. And so yeah, because that's gonna allow the sustain to be longer. If the slot's like rounded, then the string is like vibrating and it's like hitting in spots against like the rounding of the slot this way, right? So you just want it like just even. And then also, I've discussed, I don't like slots that are coming like at such an angle up. I like them just very, very slightly angled up, because otherwise in the string, especially on open chords, right, it's pushing that string. If the angle is really high, it's pushing that string so high up, and so you're fretting and you're like really far off the fretboard. The closer you get to the nut, because it's kind of like launching them clear off the fretboard there. So yeah, nut slots. Another thing is these two center ones between the D and the G, you want it right in the middle of the headstock, but really just right in the middle of the fretboard. And sometimes when they glue that nut on there, they'll do it like a little bit like off-center this way or off-center this way, to where, and you can kind of see, I'm aware of this, there's a little bit more space from the high E to the edge of the fretboard than there is from the low E to the edge of the fretboard here on Frank, but that's how he is right now. So you want it to be, at least to be intentional about where it is. If you prefer it a certain way, maybe you do, then okay. And I think this would be the way, because yeah, I think so, because that way you can get your hand more in a good position. If it's slightly up more, rather than if it's down there, you're kind of like slipping off and your shoulder's following it, right? Like I was saying, a little bit less gap up here and a little bit more down here actually puts your hand more in a position to where it's easier to grip, rather than like down here your shoulder will go a little bit, you know, and that's actually what I'm feeling. Doing stuff like a hammer on that high E, like I don't want my pinky to feel like it's slipping off, because then my shoulder will roll trying to like accommodate for that, you know. So yeah, no, I like it where it is. It's really good. So anyway, that's a little bit about nut slots on guitars. So keep them all pretty even in every aspect with each other is what I mean too. And then as I talk about, you know, that slight radius, if we can get that to where there's like a rounding this way, right, to match the rounding within our frets. If you can get a rounding to where this E is like the lowest, then it comes up a little bit to the middle, and then back down to where this E is now the lowest on the other side, with the actual depth of the slots. And if you can kind of see that within Frank here, that's what I mean. So, and that actually follows along with what's going on the other side of the nut too, where, see, this one comes down like on the steepest angle, and then on this low E, right? Oh, there we go, right there. And then on the high E, same thing, the steepest angle. And then the B is the second steepest angle, and the D is the second steepest angle. I mean the A. And then the D and the G are the middle ones, and they're less steep. So like here is what I'm talking about. See, this is kind of a rounding. So if you can match that in here as far as which strings go where, you know, according to like the height with each other, compared to each other, you know. Yeah, this is great to be able to see. So yeah, there we go. Nut slots on a guitar. Yeah, it's important. It's very, very important. Hammer-ons will be easier if you can lessen that angle. You want it to just, well, if you want easier hammer-ons, you want it to just kind of like slightly come over the nut. And then you don't want it so high off the fretboard. You just want it high enough to where you don't get fret buzz, right? Like this. That sound you can get if you get your nut slots too close to the fretboard. So you want it clean. That's actually one of the things that has named this guy Frank, again short for Frankenstein, as I've mentioned before. There's a little shim underneath the nut because I actually did get the slots too low. So I cut up a little piece of a card and put it under there, a little plastic piece. Same with the saddle, but yeah. So Frank the guitar. Okay, that's what I'd say about nut slots. Something I've had a lot of experience with, right? Worked on a ton of guitars and learned a lot about, you know, what's needed to be intentional about within the slots of the nut. So, thank you. This is In the Image Clothing Company music. Yeah, my name is Evan Strong, the founder of In the Image Clothing Company. So, cool. If you can tell, and I think you could at the beginning, I wasn't planning on doing this video within this video. Throughout the day, I mean, even like right before this, I was thinking we'll make a video on nut slots, but then I was just kind of picking around, and then I'm like, yeah, we'll just do it right here. We'll just transition into it. So, yeah, I have a video titled "Full Nylon String Guitar Setup," and then I go over everything with the whole guitar, but not in depth with the nut slots quite to the degree that I did within this. So, anyway, thank you.